In this video, we're going to walk through how you create a role. To do this, you're going to click the Settings tab in the top navigation, and then select Roles in the left navigation. To create a new role, you can select the Create Role button at the top of the screen. For the sake of example, instead of creating a new role, I'm going to walk through a role that already exists. On the role form, you can set what actions, resources, management, and forms a user with this role can access. Once you've entered all of your desired information, you can click Save at any point. The first field you need to fill out is the name. This is going to be the name of the role. In this case, it's the CP Administrator. You can add an optional description. The questions, can this role be used for transfers or can this role be used for referrals, means that this user group will appear in the refer a case or transfer a case type, and the type of information shared in an external referral or transfer. For example, to a hospital or to another instance of Primero, you can create a role called Medical Service Provider, and then this role can have access to certain forms. Those forms will be the forms that are in the export for the referral or the transfer. As mentioned in the previous video, there is a question that asks, what record does this role affect? This determines the breadth of data this role can see. The options are access only my records or user, access all records or users in my user group, access all records or users in its totality, or no record access, admin function only. In this case, this CP administrator will access all records or users. Permissions are by record. Read means you can view a case. Create means you can create a case. And write means you can edit a case. As you can see, there's a long list of permissions. Review this list to understand the various functionality a role can have and the permissions to access this role. The checkbox called Manage means all of the above. So you can do whatever you want to a case or a record or a user. If you select Manage, you do not need to select any other options. Manage also allows users to create, edit, delete user roles if they have the permission. If we keep scrolling, you will also see incident and tracing request permissions. Just as before, review the list and determine with your team if this role requires this permission. You can change what roles this role has access to for admin users. This setting is found as a permission under the Roles section. You can create a role that manages an agency's role and can set which permissions they have, such as read, write, and assign. This will ensure that there aren't super users in the system with infinite access to records. Read means the role can have view access of the above-mentioned roles. Write means they can edit those roles, and assign means they can assign those roles to users. Copy means they can duplicate the role for easy user management. Again, as mentioned previously, if Manage is selected, it overrides any combination of the permissions selected and gives access to all of the options selected. Under the Users section, this determines what information is visible to the role about users. If they have read access, they can view all users. If they have write access, they can create users. If they have assign access, they can assign a user, and if they have manage access, they can do all of the above. If the agency read is created, then this role has the ability to create users only for their own agency, but not for the system as a whole. Under the user group section, just as mentioned with users, by selecting any of these criteria determines this role can create, view, or assign user groups. Under the agency section, this determines if this role can edit, assign, or view agencies in the system. If the role is given forms and lookups, then they will be able to modify lookups in the system, which we will walk through in the Forms and Field Configurations video. Under the Report section, this determines if the role can view or create reports. Under the Dashboard section, this determines which values appear in the user's dashboard. The dashboard is the landing page of Primero once a user logs in. The audit log is whether the user can see an overview of the actions occurring in the system. This action is more appropriate for managers and administrators than for caseworkers. Under the Forms section, if all forms are unchecked, this means that this user role will be able to view all forms. If just one form is selected, then only those forms selected are viewable by this role. So what that means is if you check even one form in the case, incident, or tracing request section, you must check all forms that this role should have access to in this section. If you've selected only one of these forms, you must also select Record Information. A user cannot edit this form, but access will be needed for the system to allow the user to access this record type. If you do not select any forms in the list, then this user will have access to all forms. If you're a CPIMS system administrator, you may be wondering why incidents are in the list of the forms. The list of forms for cases contains forms for both CP and GBV modules. For users to see the form, the role must have access to the form and the username must have access to the module. We highly recommend that a role never be deleted unless it was created in error, as this may have a negative impact on any users who have been assigned the role. There are two important types of roles which we must discuss here, since the system treats them differently. The first is the superuser role. A superuser role has all-encompassing managed permissions for case, incidents, reports, roles, users, user groups, agencies, system settings, and forms and lookups. A superuser, meanwhile, is a user who has been assigned to such a role. Since this user has a great deal of power within the system, only superusers can view or edit the attributes of other superusers. For similar reasons, superuser roles cannot be edited within Primero's administrative interface. The second type of role is the user admin role. A user admin has less power than a superuser, but has been defined as all-encompassing managed permissions for roles, users, user groups, agencies, system settings, and forms and lookups. Once again, a user admin user is a specific user who has the user admin role. Only superusers and other administrator users can view or edit the attributes of a user admin user. Similarly, only superusers can edit user admin roles.